Chapter 15. The chapters on judgments from the Messenger of Allah. Chapter 1. What has been related from the Messenger of Allah about the judge. Abdullah bin Mawhab narrated that Uthman said to Ibn Umar, "Go and judge between the people." So he said, "Perhaps you can excuse me from that, O commander of the believers." He said, "Why do you have an aversion for that when your father judged?" He said, "I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, whoever was a judge and judged with justice, it still would have been better for him to have turned away from it completely. What do I want after that?" Da'if. Ibn Burayda narrated from his father that the Prophet said, "The judges are free, 2 judges that are in the fire, and a judge that is in paradise, a man who judges without the truth, and he knows that this one is in the fire, one who judges while not knowing, ruining the rights of the people, so he is in the fire, a judge who judges with the truth, that is the one in paradise." Da'if. Anas bin Malik narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever asks for a position as a judge, then he left on his own, and whoever is forced onto it, Allah sends an angel down to him so that he can be correct." Da'if. Anas narrated that the Prophet said, "Whoever seeks to be a judge and asks others to intercede for him with it, then he will be left on his own, and whoever is coerced into it, Allah sends an angel down to him so that he can be correct." Da'if. Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "Whoever takes the responsibility of judge or is appointed as judge between the people, then he has been slaughtered without a knife." Great Hassan. Chapter 2. What has been related about the judge that is correct and the judge that is mistaken. Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "When a judge passes a judgment in which he strived and was correct, then he receives 2 rewards, and when he judges and is mistaken, then he receives 1 reward." Great Sahih. Chapter 3. What has been related about how the judge is to make a judgment. Some men who were companions of Mu'ad narrated from Mu'ad that the Messenger of Allah sent Mu'ad to Yemen. So he said, How will you judge?" He said, "I will judge according to what is in Allah's book." He said, If it is not in Allah's book," he said, "then with the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah." He said, "If it is not in the Sunnah of Messenger of Allah," he said, "I will give in my view." He said, "All praise is due to Allah, the one who made the Messenger of Allah suitable." Great Da'if. Another chain of narrators from some people from the inhabitants of Hims, from Mu'ad, from the Prophet, with similar. Great Da'if. Chapter 4. What has been related about the just Imam. Abu Sa'id narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "Indeed, the most beloved of people to Allah on the day of judgment, and the nearest to him in the status, is the just Imam, and the most hated of people to Allah and the furthest from him in status is the oppressive Imam." Great Da'if. Abdullah ibn Abi al-Awfa narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "Indeed, Allah is with the judge as long as he is not unjust, So when he is unjust, he leaves him, and he is attended by Shaitan. Great Hassan. Chapter 5. What has been related about the judge not judging between two disputants until he has heard both of them. Ali narrated, "The Messenger of Allah said to me, when two men come to you seeking judgment, do not judge for the first until you have heard the statement of the other. Soon you will know how to judge." Ali said, "I did not err since then." Great Daif. Chapter 6. What has been related about the Imam who looks after people. Abul Hassan narrated that Amr bin Murrah said to Muawiyah, "I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, no Imam closes his door on one in need, dire straits, and poverty, except that Allah closes the gates of the heavens from his dire straits, his needs, and his poverty." So Muawiyah appointed a man to look after the needs of the people. Great Hassan. Another chain from Abu Maryam, the companion of the Prophet, from the Prophet, Great Hassan. Chapter 7. What has been related about the judge is not to pass a judgment while he is angry. Abdur Rahman bin Abi Bakr narrated, "My father wrote to Ubaydullah bin Abi Bakr, who was a judge, do not pass a judgment between two people while you are angry. For indeed I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, the judge should not judge between two people while he is angry." Great Sahih. Chapter 8. What has been related about gifts taken by governors. Muad bin Jabal narrated, "The Messenger of Allah dispatched me to Yemen. When I had left, he sent a message after me, so I returned, and he said, 'Do you know why I sent a message to you? Do not take anything without my permission, for that will be gulul, and whoever commits gulul, he comes with what he took on the day of judgment. This is why I called you, so now go and do your job.' Great Daif. Chapter 9. What has been related about the one who gives a bribe and the one who takes a bribe for judgment. Abu Huraira narrated, "The Messenger of Allah cursed the one who bribes and the one who takes a bribe for a judgment." Great Hassan. Abdullah bin Amr narrated, "The Messenger of Allah cursed the one who bribes and the one who takes a bribe." Great Hassan. Chapter 10. What has been related about accepting the gift and accepting the invitation. Anas bin Malik narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, if trotter lacking meat were given to me, I would accept it, and if I was invited to a meal of it, I would accept. Great Sahih. Chapter 11. What has been related about the severe threat for one who is awarded a judgment for something that is not his to take. Salama narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "Indeed you come to me with your disputes, and I am only a human being. Perhaps one of you is more eloquent at presenting his argument than the other. If I judge for one of you, giving him something from the rights of his brother, then it is only a piece of the fire that I am giving him, so do not take anything from it." Great Sahih. Chapter 12. What has been related about the proof is required from the claimant, and the oath is required from the one the claim is against. Alqama bin Wa'il bin Hujr narrated from his father, who said, "A man from Hadramaut, and a man from Kinda came to the Prophet. The Hadrami said, O Messenger of Allah, this person took some land of mine. The Kindi said, It is my land, it is in my possession, and he has no right to it. So the Prophet said to the Hadrami, Do you have proof? He said, No. He said, Then you will have the oath. He said, O Messenger of Allah, this man is a liar. It makes not difference what he takes an oath for. He is not ashamed of doing anything. He said, There is nothing you deserve from him except that. He said, So the man was left to take an oath for it. And in the meantime, the Messenger of Allah said, If he takes an oath for your property to wrongfully consume it, he will meet Allah while he is angry with him. Great Sahih. Ahmed bin Shuaib narrated from his grandfather, that during a khutbah, the Prophet said, The proof is due from the claimant, and the oath is due from the one the claim is made against. Great Sahih. Ibn Abbas narrated that the Messenger of Allah judged that the oath is due from the one the claim is made against. Great Sahih. Chapter 13. What has been related about the oath along with a witness. Abu Huraira narrated, The Messenger of Allah passed judgment based on an oath along with one witness. Rabia, one of the narrators, said, A son of Ibn Sa'd bin Ubadah informed me, saying, We found in a book of Sa'd that the Prophet passed judgment based on an oath along with a witness. Great Sahih. Jabir narrated, The Prophet passed judgment based on oath along with a witness. Great Sahih. Jafar bin Muhammad narrated from his father, The Prophet passed judgment based on an oath along with one witness. He said, And Ali judged between you based on it. Great Sahih. Chapter 14. What has been related about a slave owned by two men, and one of them frees his portion of him. Ibn Umar narrated that the Prophet said, Whoever frees a portion, or he said, a part, or he said, a share he owns of a slave, then he can afford the remainder of the price according to the reasonable price. Then he will be free. Otherwise he has freed as much as he has freed only. Ayub, one of the narrators, said, Perhaps Nafi said in this hadith, meaning he has freed as much of him as he has freed. Great Sahih. Salim narrated from his father that the Prophet said, Whoever frees a portion of a slave he owns, then he can afford the remainder of the price. Then he should free him with his wealth. Great Sahih. Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, Whoever frees a portion, or he said, a part of a slave, then he should finish paying his price if he can afford it. If he cannot afford to pay a reasonable price, then he should be allowed to work to earn the amount that will free him without overburdening him. Another chain similar, and he said, a part. Great Sahih. Chapter 15. What has been related about a lifelong gift, Al-Umrah. Samura narrated that the Prophet said, The lifelong gift is permitted for its inhabitant, or is an inheritance for its inhabitant. Great Sahih. Jabir narrated that the Prophet said, "Whichever man is given a lifelong gift for himself and his offspring, then it belongs to the one whom it was given. It does not return to the one who gave it, for he has given a gift which shall be included in the inheritance." Great Sahih. Chapter 16. What has been related about Ar-Rukbah. Jabir narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "The lifelong gift is permitted for its inhabitant, and the Rukbah is permitted for its inhabitant." Great Sahih. Chapter 17. What has been related from the Messenger of Allah says about reconciliation. Katir bin Amr bin Auf al-Musani narrated from his grandfather, that the Messenger of Allah said, "Reconciliation is allowed among the Muslims, except for reconciliation that makes the lawful unlawful, or the unlawful lawful, and the Muslims will be held to their conditions, except the conditions that make the lawful unlawful, or the unlawful lawful." Great Sahih. Chapter 18. What has been related about a man placing a beam on his neighbor's enclosure wall. Al-Araj narrated from Abu Huraira, saying, "I heard him saying, the Messenger of Allah said, when one of you seeks his neighbor's permission to affix a wooden beam in his wall, then do not prevent him." When Abu Huraira narrated it, they tilted their heads. So he said, "Why do I see that you are averse to it? By Allah, I will continue to narrate it among you." Great Sahih. Chapter 19. What has been related about the oath is based upon what will make his companion believe him. Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "The oath is based upon what will make your companion believe you." Qutayba, one of the narrators, said, "What will make you believed by your companion?" Great Sahih. Chapter 20. What has been related about the road. When there is a disagreement about it, how should it be made? Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "Make the road 7 forearm lengths." Great Sahih. Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "When you disagree over the road, then make it 7 forearm lengths." Great Sahih. Chapter 21. What has been related about the boy choosing between his parents when they separate. Abu Maymuna narrated from Abu Huraira, who said, "The Prophet gave a boy the choice between his father and his mother." Great Sahih. Chapter 22. What has been related about the father can take from the wealth of his son. Aisha narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, "Indeed, the most wholesome of what you consume is from your earnings, and indeed your children are from your earnings." Great Sahih. Chapter 23. What has been related about when one's property has been broken. What is the judgment for him for the property of the one who broke it? Anas narrated, "One of the wives of the Prophet gave the Prophet some food in a bowl. Then Aisha broke the bowl with her hand and discarded what was in it. So the Prophet said, 'Food for food and vessel for vessel.'" Great Sahih. Anas narrated that the Messenger of Allah borrowed a bowl which broke, so he guaranteed compensated it for them. Great Da'if. Chapter 24. What has been related about the limits of responsibility for a man and woman. Narrated Nafi that Ibn Umar said, I was reviewed before the Messenger of Allah in the army, and I was 14 years old, but he did not accept me. Then I was reviewed before him in the army later while I was 15 years old, and he accepted me. Nafi said, I narrated this hadith to Uman bin Abdul Aziz, and he said, this is the limit that distinguishes between childhood and adulthood. Then he wrote to give salaries to whoever reached 15 years old. Another chain from Nafi from Ibn Umar from the Prophet, and it is similar, but he did not mention in it that Umar bin Abdul Aziz wrote that this is the limit that distinguishes between youth and childhood and adulthood. In his narration, Ibn Uyayna said that Nafi said, I narrated it to Umar bin Abdul Aziz, and he said, this is the limit that distinguishes between children and soldiers. Great Sahih. Chapter 25. What has been related about a man who married a woman his father was married to previously. Narrated Al-Bara, my maternal uncle Abu Burda ibn Niyar passed by me, and he had a flag with him. I said, where are you going? He said, the messenger of Allah dispatched me to a man who married a woman his father had married to, that I should bring him his head. Great Sahih. Chapter 26. What has been related about the case of two men, and one of them lives downstream from the other. Narrated Abdullah bin As-Subayr. A man from the Ansar disputed with As-Subayr before the Messenger of Allah about the canals of Hara, which they used to irrigate the date palms. The Ansari said, let the water pass, but he refused. So they brought their dispute to the Messenger of Allah. The Messenger of Allah said to As-Subayr, O As-Subayr, irrigate your land, then let the water pass to your neighbor. The Ansari became angry and said, O Messenger of Allah, is this because he is your aunt's son? The face of the Messenger of Allah changed color. Then he said, O Subayr, irrigate your land, and then withhold the water until it reaches the walls. As-Subayr said, by Allah, I think that this ayah was revealed about that, but no, by your Lord, they can have no faith until they make you, O Muhammad, judge in all disputes between them, and find in themselves no resistance against your decisions, and accept them with full submission. Great Sahih. Chapter 27. What has been related about one who frees his slaves when he dies, while he has no wealth aside from them. Narrated Imran bin Hussein. A man from the Ansar freed 6 slaves of his upon his death, and he did not have any wealth aside from them. That was conveyed to the Prophet, and he said some harsh words about him. He said, then he called for them, and he divided them, and had them draw lots. So he freed 2 of them, and left 4 as slaves. Great Sahih. Chapter 28. What has been related about one who owned a madam, a close relative. Samura narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, whoever owns a related madam, then he is free. Great Hassan. Another chain from Samura that the Prophet said, whoever owns a related madam, then he is free. Great Hassan. Chapter 29. What has been related about one who farms a people's land without their permission. Narrated Rafi bin Khadij that the Prophet said, whoever farms a people's land without their permission, then nothing he farms belongs to him, and its finances are due to him. Great Daif. Chapter 30. What has been related about gifts and equality between children. Narrated An-Nu'man bin Bashir, that his father gave a slave to a son of his, so he went to the Prophet to have him witness it. He said, "Have you given a gift similar to this one to all of your sons?" He replied, "No." So he said, "Then take him back." Great Sahih. Chapter 31. What has been related about preemption. Narrated Samura, that the Messenger of Allah said, "The neighbor of a home has more right to the home." Great Hassan. Chapter 32. What has been related about preemption for the absent. Narrated Jabir, that the Messenger of Allah said, "The neighbor has more right to his preemption. He is to be waited for even if he is absent, when their paths are the same." Great Hassan. Chapter 33. What has been related about when the boundaries are defined and the areas are fixed, then there is no preemption. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, that the Messenger of Allah said, "When the boundaries are defined and the streets are fixed, then there is no preemption." Great Sahih. Chapter 34. What has been related about the partner is the preemptor. Narrated Ibn Abbas, that the Messenger of Allah said, "The partner is the preemptor, and preemption is in everything." Great Hassan. Chapter 35. What has been related about lost items, the stray camel and sheep. Narrated Sayd bin Khalid al-Juni. A man asked the Messenger of Allah about lost items, so he said, "Make a public announcement about it for 1 year. Remember its string, its contained and its sack. Then use it, and if its owner comes, then give it to him." So he said to him, "O Messenger of Allah, what about the stray sheep?" He said, "Take it, for it is either for you, your brother, or the wolf." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, what about stray camel?" He said, then the Prophet got angry until his cheeks became red, or his face became red. He said, "What concern is it of yours? It has its feet and its water reserved until it reaches its owner." Great Sahih. Sayd bin Khalid al-Juni narrated that the Messenger of Allah was asked about the lost item. He said, "Make a public announcement about it for 1 year. If it is claimed, then give it to him. Otherwise remember its sack, string, and its cant. Then use it, and if its owner comes, give it to him." Great Sahih. Suwaid bin Ghafala said, "I went out with Sayd bin Suhan and Salman bin Rabia and found a whip." In his narration, Ibn Numair, one of the narrators, said, "I found a lost whip and took it. They said, 'Leave it.' I said, 'I will not leave it to be eaten by predators. I will take it to make use of it.' So I met up with Ubay bin Ka'b and asked him about that. So he narrated the hadith. He said, 'That is fine. I found a sack containing 100 dinar during the lifetime of the Messenger of Allah.' He said, so I brought it to him. He said to me, 'Make a public announcement about it for 1 year.' So I announced it for a year, but did not find anyone to claim it. Then I brought it to him. He said to me, 'Make a public announcement about it for another year.' So I announced it for a year, but did not find anyone to claim it. Then I brought it to him. He said, 'Make a public announcement about it for another year.' And he said, 'Remember its amount, its container, and its string. If someone comes seeking it and informs you of its amount and its string, then give it to him. Otherwise use it.' Great Sahih. Chapter 36. What has been related about a waqf. Narrated Ismail bin Ibrahim from Ibn Avn, from Nafi, that Ibn Umar said, Umar got some land from Khaybar and said, O Messenger of Allah, I got some wealth from Khaybar, and I never ever had any wealth as plentiful as it. So what do you order me to do with it? He said, if you wish, make it a grant and give charity from it. So Umar gave it in charity, that is not to be sold entirely, nor given away, nor inherited, to be used to produce charity for the needy, those who are near it, for freeing slaves, for the cause of Allah, the wayfarer, the guest, and that there is no harm on its custodian consuming what is customary from it, or eating from its charity without trying to amass wealth from it. Great Sahih. Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, when a person dies, his deeds are cut off except for three: continuing charity, knowledge that others benefited from, and a righteous son who supplicates for him. Great Sahih. Chapter 37. What has been related about injuries caused by domestic animals, narrated Abu Huraira, that the Messenger of Allah said, the injuries caused by the animal are without liability, and wells are without liability, and mines are without liability, and the kumis is due on the rikas. Another chain from Abu Huraira from the Prophet with similar meaning. Great Sahih. Chapter 38. What has been mentioned about reviving barren land, narrated Sa'id bin Zayd, that the Prophet said, whoever revives a barren land, then it is for him, and there is no right for the unjust root. Great Sahih. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, that the Prophet said, whoever revives a barren land, then it is for him. Great Sahih. Chapter 39. What has been related about land reserves, narrated Shumair, that Abiyad bin Hamal visited the Messenger of Allah, who asked him to set aside a reserve of salt, a mine. So he reserved it for him. As he was turning away, a man in the gathering said, do you know what you reserved for him? You merely reserved stagnant water for him. He, Shumair, said, so he left him. He, Shumair, said, so he asked him, the Prophet, about making a private pasture of arak, a type of tree. He said, as long as it is not harmed by the hooves of the camels. So I, at Tirmidhi, recited that before Qutayba, and he said, yes. Another chain with similar meaning. Great Hassan. Narrated Alqama bin Wa'il from his father that the Prophet set aside a land reserved for him in Hadramaut. One of the narrators added, and he sent Muawiyah with him to reserve it for him. Great Sahih. Chapter 40. What has been related about the virtue of planting, narrated Anas, that the Prophet said, no Muslim plants a plant or sows a crop, then a person or a bird or an animal eats from it, except that it will be charity for him. Great Sahih. Chapter 41. What has been related about agriculture, narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet made a deal with the people of Khaybar for half of what was produced from it, whether fruits or crops. Great Sahih. Chapter 42. About sharecropping, narrated Rafi bin Khadij. The Messenger of Allah forbade us from a matter that was of benefit for us. When one of us had some land and we would let someone use it for a portion of its produce, or some dirham, he said, when one of you has some land, then let him grant it to his brother, or let him farm it. Great Taif. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Messenger of Allah did not prohibit sharecropping, but he ordered that they be helpful with each other. Great Sahih.